In today's video, I am going to address one of the biggest questions that is circulating around the media today, and that is, what if China decided to invade Taiwan? This is a question that really crosses the everyday person's mind, especially if you're living in Taiwan or near Taiwan, or are living near China or in China. So I'm going to go ahead and quickly paint this picture for you guys. So imagine waking up tomorrow morning to breaking news. There's a big header that comes across the TV screen that says China has invaded Taiwan. Or, if you watch the news or look up the news online, you see a lot of different news sources with the same thing, same caption saying China has invaded Taiwan. Chinese warships are surrounding the island. Fighter jets are in the sky, missiles are being launched, and Taiwan's military has been placed on its highest alert. Within hours, the entire world would be watching. And many people would start to ask themselves, would the United States intervene? Would Japan join the conflict? Could Taiwan survive? And could a war over Taiwan eventually turn into a much larger conflict? But obviously, before I get into that, I'm going to explain why China wants to invade Taiwan. Maybe you all know watching this video, or you're new to it. Either way, that's fine. I'm going to still explain. China claims Taiwan as part of its territory and has repeatedly called for unification. Beijing has also refused to rule out using force to accomplish this goal. But Taiwan is important for more than just political reasons. Its location is strategically important. Taiwan sits just off the coast of China, close to Japan and the Philippines, and occupies a critical position in the Western Pacific. Taiwan is also one of the world's most important producers of advanced semiconductors. These tiny computer chips are used in everything from smartphones and cars to computers and artificial intelligence systems. So a war over Taiwan could affect the entire world, not just Taiwan itself, but other countries as well. Now I'm going to explain how the first attack would look, or could possibly look. So if China decided to attack, the conflict might not begin with an immediate invasion. China could at first attempt to weaken Taiwan's military through missile strikes, air operations, cyber attacks, and electronic warfare. Military operations and other critical infrastructure could potentially be targeted. China could also attempt to isolate Taiwan by restricting air and maritime traffic. This could effectively turn Taiwan into an island under siege. And Taiwan would respond by mobilizing its military and attempting to preserve its command systems and defensive capabilities. And then comes one of the biggest challenges for China, which is crossing the Taiwan Strait. A full invasion would require moving enormous numbers of troops, vehicles, fuel, ammunition, and supplies across the water. And China would have to keep those supply lines operating while Taiwan tries to destroy or disrupt them. So that leads me to my next point. Could Taiwan defend itself? Taiwan's biggest advantage could be its geography. The island has mountains, dense cities, and relatively limited area suitable for a large amphibious assault. Taiwan has also spent years preparing for the possibility of an attack. Its military would likely attempt to prevent China from establishing a secure foothold and make any advance as difficult as possible. But China has a much larger population, economy, and military. So the outcome would depend on much more than simply counting tanks, aircraft, or ships. Logistics would be critical. So that leads to more questions, which is, could China keep its forces supplied? Could Taiwan maintain its defenses? And perhaps most importantly, would other countries intervene? Obviously the big question is, would the United States enter the war? This could be the biggest question of all. The United States follows a policy of strategic ambiguity toward Taiwan. Washington supports Taiwan's ability to defend itself, but American policy does not simply guarantee that U.S. forces would automatically enter a war if China attacked. So if an invasion happened, the American president would face an extraordinarily difficult decision here. The United States could provide intelligence, weapons, and logistical support, or it could decide to directly enter the conflict. If American forces became involved, the war could expand dramatically. Japan would become especially important because of its location and the presence of U.S. military forces there. The Philippines and Australia could also become strategically important. And a conflict that began between China and Taiwan could quickly become an international crisis. Which leads me to my next point, which is the global economic shock. Even countries that stayed out of the war wouldn't necessarily escape the consequences. Taiwan is a major semiconductor producer, as we discussed earlier. If production or exports were disrupted, the companies around the world could face shortages. Cars, computers, smartphones, servers, and artificial intelligence systems could all be affected. Shipping through the region could also be disrupted, stock markets could fall, international trade could slow down, and China itself could face enormous economic consequences through sanctions, trade restrictions, and disrupted supply chains. So a Taiwan war wouldn't simply be a military crisis, it could become a global economic crisis. The worst case scenario here is simply imagine that the United States directly enters a conflict. American and Chinese forces begin fighting. The situation could become one of the largest military confrontations of the modern era. Both countries possess nuclear weapons, making escalation an extremely serious concern. That doesn't mean nuclear weapons would automatically be used, though, but leaders on both sides would have to carefully manage the conflict to prevent it from escalating beyond control. And if other countries became involved, the consequences could be even greater. So many people start to ask who would win, and the truth is nobody really knows. Military simulations can give us possible outcomes, but they cannot predict exactly what would happen. China could attempt a blockade instead of an invasion. Taiwan could resist longer than expected. The United States can intervene or could stay out. And a conflict that begins as a limited operation could potentially grow into something much larger. A Chinese invasion of Taiwan wouldn't just change Taiwan, it could reshape the global economy, international policies, politics, and the relationship between the world's most powerful countries. That's why Taiwan remains one of the most dangerous potential flashpoints in the world. And the biggest question isn't simply who would win, it's whether the world can prevent the war from happening in the first place. Subscribe for more videos detailing similar topics. And I will see you guys in the next video.